Fingers crossed.
Dude, that dude Jay he looked like a real setup. He looked like a real YouTuber.
Right? So professional.
Hey, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit subscribe.
Oh,
There
Sarah,
we go.
I need to get a setup like that.
Sarah, I was just told that we're live.
Yeah. There we go. All right. Whoa, I'm hearing myself. Don't do that. Ah, happens every time and I never catch it fast enough. And then I'm just like hearing the reverberation of my voice. And it's really creepy. I'm going to post a thing. Yeah. And post. Yay. Cool. Awesome. So I have gathered you all here today to finally, once and for all, answer the question, what makes a good photographer? We're going to find it out right here, and this is going to be the final answer. This is going to be it. After this, there's no other debates allowed. This is literally the Braintree meeting of the minds, and we're going to figure it out in the next 50 minutes.
Okay.
Sounds good?
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right, cool. Bring the court to order. Welcome everybody watching. I'm Sarah. I'm the director of the Atlanta School of Photography. Yay. And I'm hearing a reverberation of my voice in Drew's phone. Drew, why don't you take this opportunity to introduce yourself?
I'm Drew. Hello. I'm in the world. That's why I'm wearing a mask. But once I get out of the world, I won't look like a Mortal Kombat character anymore.
I'm kind of enjoying everyone looking like Mortal Kombat characters, though. That, or they're about to like, I forgot my mask the other day and I had to wear like this bandana over my face and it literally looked like I was like in Westworld about to rob a bank or something.
Yeah.
It was great. And Lidra, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey, I'm Leisure Woodley. Yeah, want to tell what we are other than Leisure Woodley? Yeah, so basically I'm the owner of Natural Connections Photo Workshops, and I also teach at the Atlanta School of Photography sometimes. So yeah, that's me.
Yay. And Jay, go for it.
I'm Jay. I also teach at the school, and I work in the film industry when I'm not.
Yeah.
Yay.
You can tell by the amazing, super professional setup that I'm going to also need probably sooner than later. We'll talk about that. And David.
Hi, I do not have a professional setup, but I am aboard the NCC 11701D, the Star Trek Enterprise from The Next Generation. I'm the resident nerd.
Yeah, pretty much. Even out nerds me, which is saying something. So yeah. All right, so the first question that I have for you guys, and I think the first one that almost always comes up whenever I have, oh my gosh, Doug, it's like you just appeared in the chair. Okay, the first question that I have, and the one that like almost always I feel like we get in each of our classes and each of these live sessions or anything like that is, does equipment matter and to what extent?
Interesting.
Anyone want to take that on?
I'll start. I think equipment matters to a certain degree, but I've always been a fan of the lens being more important than the camera. Like, personally, I had a crappy camera for years, and the sensor would give me decent quality images, but it was really all about the glass. So once I started renting glass or borrowing nicer lenses from friends, that made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I'd say most cameras, they do the same functions. Lenses are kind of what make the image for the most part. Camera's more just a processor in that regard. So.
Yeah, I always tell my 101 students, because they come in with a variety of different gear. You know, you have 12 people in a classroom, and so everybody has something different. I always tell people to not get caught up in the whole gear envy thing at first. Use whatever they have. It's perfectly fine. You're going to be able to learn with it for a long time. And then eventually you'll figure out what you need. Don't get caught up in the gear race before then. Learn the basics first.
Yeah, I think so. And then I had to mute Drew because I think that there was like a car, or no, it was a plane that went over.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Oh, ha! I thought I was muted this whole time. I'm glad I didn't
Pretty
say
much,
anything.
because at a certain point it just got a little bit chaotic and I had to mute you.
Oh, my
But I'm
bad.
glad that I did because I saw a plane go over.
No, that's what I was like. Did anybody see that plane like right behind me? And I'm like, am I? Oh boy, anyway.
Did you have something you wanted to input on the question?
I don't even know what the question was.
Okay, cool. All right.
Classic.
I was asking, does the equipment matter, and to what extent?
Yeah, it matters depending on what you do. If you are a architectural photographer and you don't have any tilt shift lenses, then you know it's things like that. If you're doing stuff mainly for Instagram, you don't need to have a super big, powerful 46 megapixel camera. I think gear matters in that sense, but when you're first getting started, learn the tool and be good with it. So it's like, I want to be able to draw with a pencil before I can draw with a super mechanical 6mm graphite. And no, I want to be able to draw with a pencil first. Then I'll move on to the bigger stuff if I need to. So, I mean, I don't know, from teaching at the school, touching everybody's camera, not now because we have social distancing, but
Yeah.
when we were able to touch everybody's camera, it was fun because I was like, you know, they would always ask me, which camera's the best camera? I'm like, which one do you have? That's it. Like, what are you doing? It all depends on what you're doing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like, I know for me, some of the favorite pictures I've ever taken have actually, not professionally, probably more creatively, have actually been with like an old twin lens reflex camera that you'd probably get from Goodwill for like $20 or something. Like, it wasn't even a thing when I was thinking about what type of equipment that I wanted to have. It was like working more professionally, of course, like building up to being able to have some of that equipment, but it didn't necessarily help me become or like make my pictures better. It just made my life easier, I think. So if anything, as you continue to like take pictures, or if you work professionally or whatnot, it's like you're not getting gear expecting to become a better photographer. You're getting gear just to like make your life easier. Like when I first started as an event photographer, I had, I think, 4 different lenses and 1 camera body, and I was just like constantly switching them out like a crazy person. And then I'd have dust all over my sensor and I have to get it cleaned every like couple of weeks. And it was a freaking nightmare. And finally I was like, I just have to start saving for another camera body and 2 good L series lenses that I can just pull up as needed and go from there. So it's more about, I think, just convenience than anything when it comes to getting better equipment.
Yeah.
I think Drew makes like a good point about figuring out what type of gear is best suited for your style of photography. Like when you get started, it's great to just have a camera, get your understanding of aperture, ISO, shutter speed, file formats, focus points, all of that. And then based off of your interests, like kind of go in that direction, like architectural photography. You're probably going to need a big sensor. If you're doing fashion photography, you definitely need a lot of megapixels, right? Like those 50 megapixel cameras. If you're interested in sports, it should be all about the speed of your lens, so like how much light's coming into it. And I think the focus points are really huge, and that's why so many people are jumping to Sony right now, because it can just the focusing is just insane.
Yeah, Drew and I had our geek out over Sony the other week when we did our live session. But yeah, pretty good.
Sony.
I know. It's really good. It's kind of
Just
ridiculous.
big ad for Sony right now.
Yeah, I know.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I personally made the switch to Sony because I was Nikon. I was everything for a while, but I was Nikon personal camera. But then Sony was like, I have the 40. No, thank you so much. Thank you. I have a 61 megapixel camera, And I was like, oh, with 4K, oh, with auto eye detection, oh. And I was like, well, if you're gonna give me all this, I'm just gonna go there. You know what I mean? So, and then Sony, what from studying, Sony is not a camera company. They're a tech company. So you get the best of the stuff. You're not just getting like the gimmicky things. Like I'm gonna make a new camera, but I'm just gonna switch the button. No, Sony's like, what didn't you like? Well, I want to be able to see in the dark. All right, cool. Here's the ISO of 2 million. And then you're like, well, I need a better grip. Okay, well, here's a smaller handle. Oh, okay. Sony just gives you stuff because they're a tech company. And I love that about Sony versus just being the gimmicky, like, I'm going to give you a different body with a move button. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that all kind of goes under that like convenience category where it's like I could do all of that with virtually any camera. It's just going to be like I'm probably going to have a slightly easier time doing it. But I feel like having worked with, I guess, like not super like top end gear at the beginning kind of gets you in a headspace where you know what to expect at least when you get into it. So then when you do get the high end gear, you're just like, this is amazing. And you actually appreciate it for what it is. And you're just like, okay, no, this is everything I've been missing. And this is pretty amazing. Where it's like, I can't even imagine starting off with like a super nice camera with like an L series lens or something like that. But if you do, good on you. I don't know how you made that happen, but good job.
It's like the kid in high school who gets a sports car when he's 16. It's like, oh, good for you, right? I'm gonna drive this beat up car for a while, learn how to drive, and make all my mistakes with it before I get a big fancy pants car.
Like my mom gave me her 2012 Subaru, and I was like thrilled. I was just like, this is 4-wheel drive. This is amazing.
Yeah, I got a Hyundai with Bluetooth, and I lost my mind.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. My next question. For photographers that are just starting out, or I mean, like, I guess it doesn't even have to be necessarily starting out, but it can be at any stage really. But I feel like when you're starting off or you're about a year in, you kind of, I recognize from like a lot of our students, a lot of them feel like they hit a wall almost, and they can't better their photography from there. So do you guys have any recommendations for like just essentially like bettering your craft as a whole and taking better pictures?
I don't know. I guess I'll jump on this one. Imitation is a form of flattery. I would say go out and
go out and
can you guys hear me?
Now we can.
Okay.
Go out and
go out and see, find people that you admire, that you like, styles that you like. Like, for example, I really like Annie Leibovitz's portraits. And what I would do is I would just study her portrait style. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to recreate this portrait and then put my spin on it. Because if you do get into almost like a groove or a rhythm, it becomes stagnant. It will become boring. And you won't want to do it again. So I say, look other places, learn how to do other people's styles. And you might reignite some kind of spark within your own style.
Yeah, I think people should, if you get stuck in a certain place, try other genres of photography. Because, sometimes, I do mostly landscape, nature, travel, but, at one point I did do portraiture, I did do weddings, I did a lot of different things. And I learned something from each one of those things that I still possibly take back to the thing that I do the most. So, and you might actually find something you like better and find a new passion if you do that. So try other genres, get a flash, see what it's all about to take some people pictures. If you're like me and I do nature and landscape, try things like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like I had the same answer as Drew, which is like just go and copy a photographer, like do your research and just break down the image, which I'm hoping that we're going to be able to have like another live session on soon where we do like image breakdowns. I know Jay and I have been like trying to put together a workshop or a class like entirely on it, and start to dissect it and say, okay, where did this light come from? How far is the background away? What colors are they using? I think that's one where it's like that kind of changed up my game a little bit when, especially when I got into editing, was looking at the colors that photographers used and then how to be able to recreate those. Because I wasn't seeing them in like the original image. I was seeing them maybe more as I started to work with them in the editing in post. But yeah, it's just getting in and printing out a whole bunch of pictures or getting some photography books, putting stickers on them and saying, I want to try this one, I want to try this one. And then just like, don't feel like you have to go all out. Like Drew's with Annie Leibovitz, like she's got major, gigantic, huge setups, but you can just as easily get a couple of like figurines and a clamp light and start to move it around and say, okay, at what angle was this and how did this work and all that. That'd be a fun project, is to make miniatures of Annie Leibovitz pictures. Who wants to do that with me? Yeah.
I'll piggyback off Drew, because I think that's true. What Drew said, it's true about all arts, right? Like when someone first picks up a guitar, right? They don't know how to play guitar, so where do they go? They go to bands that they like. They learn how to play the songs that they like, and once you get that kind of core understanding, you then can experiment, right? And I think it's important to know what it is that your favorites are doing. So like when Drew's talking about Annie Leibovitz, like how does she pose her models? Where's the light coming from? For me, I'm all about post-production and Photoshop. So it's similar to what you were saying, Sarah, is my images look like this, but I'm interested and passionate about these photographers whose images look like that. How do I get from here to there? And then it's kind of like reverse engineering and understanding what they're doing with their different effects in Lightroom or in Photoshop, and figuring out how to apply that to your own work. And the beauty of that is, as you're reverse engineering and as you're experimenting, you'll kind of stumble across your own voice, your own style of how to develop and shoot, if that makes sense.
I'm literally writing down a reminder for myself to do an ASoP live image breakdown.
Cool.
Yay. Yeah, I was also going to say that when I kind of talking about like what Leidra was saying about trying different genres, one of my favorite to do, but I have no application for this in my professional world, is like nighttime photography. And I found that it allows me to like have this mental shift where I'm not on it all the time as much as I am with event photography, because event photography, you're constantly looking, go, look, go, just pattern, 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 pattern. But with night photography, I have the ability to just zen out, just entirely get into this super meditative mind state in a way where I have to calculate, wait, process, look, reevaluate, and do it all over again. And at first, when I started doing this, I thought I was going to be the most frustrating thing in the whole wide world. I thought I was going to hate it and it was going to be awful and I couldn't like mentally calculate it. Then I realized, oh, I love this. This is great, even though it's the complete opposite of what I normally do. So if I ever find that I need to get back into that sort of meditative photography state, I'll go out and do like some night photography, and it helps immensely, because then the next shoot that I go on, I'm seeing things a little bit differently and saying, okay, so maybe I'm not so much on hyperdrive and I'm able to kind of take my time and calculate a bit more.
Yeah, night photography really slows the brain down. What I also like about night photography is that you're forced to encounter the unexpected, right? Like it throws you into problem solving mode. And at times you can take a picture that's 20 minutes and then it's going to be 15 minutes for the camera to process the image. So, you know, a half hour's gone by and you haven't even seen what you got. Then
Yeah.
when you do, you're like, oh, well, I burnt the chicken on that one. Let me try again.
Yeah, Dave, do you want to explain your burnt the chicken theory?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of comparisons with learning any art and cooking, right? And the best way to learn how to cook, in my opinion, is to screw up royally. And so I always talk about when I was a young man and I had a date. This is before you, Sarah. Whoa.
The dates before me?
Like two.
Okay, that's fine.
And I had a date and I was like, I'm gonna cook some chicken. It's gonna be awesome. Like I'm gonna cook a meal. And I followed the recipe. I did everything I was supposed to. The outside of the chicken had beautiful grill marks and the inside was completely raw, right? The next time I try again, and this time I burnt the living crap out of the chicken. Like it was just a hockey puck. But the third time I had undercooked and I had overcooked. So I kind of seen both sides of the coin, and that helped me find that like little sweet spot. So one of the things I really like to tell the students is you have to be prepared to burn the chicken. A failure is actually a success, right? Because you've learned what not to do. And I think that's true in Photoshop. I think that's true with the camera. I think that's true with any type of art.
Yep.
And I think the biggest thing that I tell a lot of my students, especially adults, seem to have this mindset, maybe just because we've gone through so much, where it's like kids, when I teach kids, they never think about this. I'm just like, you're not going to break anything. You're not going to get bruised. You're not going to hurt anyone. If you take a bad picture, it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. If you goof up something in Photoshop, that's okay. No one died. Everything's fine. Yeah, Command Z, like just Command Z it. It's totally okay. There's literally a button in your camera for a full hard reset of all of the settings to put it back to its original manufacturing settings. Like you cannot do any permanent damage. It is going to be okay. Meanwhile, when I go and teach kids, they're just literally like, I'm going to climb up that tree and go take a picture. I'm like, no, you can't actually hurt yourself doing that. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. So yeah.
It's digital. It's not film, right? Like you can delete a file. You can undo it.
Didn't
Back
cost
in
you a
my
penny.
day, you know.
Didn't cost you a penny.
Yep.
Whereas like film, yeah. But that was another thing as far as like kind of bettering your technique. One of the things that I also recommend, and I probably need to do this with myself in a little bit, is if you ever find like you're getting into that headspace of you're taking a whole bunch of pictures and none of them are turning out good, is to pretend that your camera is a film camera and you only have so many exposures. So like you're going to go out and shoot, pretend it's a film camera and you only have a roll of film with 24 pictures in it. And you will find kind of the same thing. You will slow down and say, this is it and this is all I have. And you're going to get that extra angle before you take the shot and look through it and all that. So that's one of my favorite exercises. And I have to do that for myself soon because I'm getting into that headspace too.
Yeah, I actually, if anyone has any of those Polaroids that you can get from like Target or whatnot,
Oh man, yeah.
I mean, it's not instantaneously, but if you just go and shoot one of those, I think those packets are what, like $10, $12 for 8 pictures, but that is a good way to slow down if you want to not invest in a 36 pack of 35mm film and all that kind of stuff. But does for sure help.
Yeah, like the little Instamatics cameras, those are so fun. We've got one here at the school. It's one of my favorite things to just randomly take pictures on.
Yeah. I think that's a really good exercise to like slow down what is the digital world, where we treat our cameras and taking pictures like we're hunting with a machine gun sometimes. You know, it's just lay down 3,000 pictures, you know, what do they call it? Spray and pray, right? That hopefully one of these 200 pictures I shot is going to be a good one.
You've been playing too much Call of Duty.
Well, you know, quarantine. But I think there's a lot to be said where if you give yourself like a limit where you go out and you shoot and say, I'm only going to take 12 pictures today, right? It makes you really think about your composition, your choice with aperture, your choice with shutter speed. It slows everything down. So I think it's kind of like, Sarah, what you were talking about with night photography. I had a student years ago who they grew up kind of poor, and they were talking about like the importance of the roll of film that their father would purchase each year. He would only put it in the camera and take a picture if like the grandparents came over or if it was somebody's birthday. And when say the birthday was over, you took a picture of the kid with a cake, he would wind the film back and he would write what frame he was on. So he'd write like number 7, and then he'd keep it in the refrigerator for say like Easter came along, and he would take out the roll of film, advance to frame 8.
Oh my God.
Take a picture. And so that person grew up with an understanding that like kind of the preciousness of taking a picture. I think that's something that we all can take to kind of slow down the process and like really appreciate the art of taking a shot.
Maybe not that severe,
Right.
but you get the gist. Yeah.
Right. It's a story I'll never forget.
No, I know. That's amazing. That's so cool to think about. It's just like there's one camera and that's it. And that's the whole year. That's so cool. I want to see those pictures though. My third question is, and I maybe we're even kind of like touching on that. It's like, where do you get your inspiration from? So if you're looking to kind of also get up new ideas and new places, like where do you go to find it? Or what do you do?
I usually, once I've kind of, I guess, looked at a couple of people that I like, I then try to merge those 2 or 3 people, or one at a time. So you take A and merge it with B, and then A with C, and then B with C, and vice versa. And then once you have those 2 pairings, then you try to merge all of them together. So it
Oh, that's
might be
cool.
one person might shoot more orange, one might shoot more blue, trying to put like orange and blue kind of a deal. But also something like, how did you do, like if you like a portrait photographer, but you like someone who does more Photoshop heavy stuff, trying to merge the 2 together. So you're doing like a portrait photographer with a composite heavy person, trying to do something like that. And that usually gets the, I guess, the creativeness going and all that kind of stuff.
So like almost like a mashup, like a visual photography mashup.
Yeah, it's like the mixtape of 1980 for
you beat me to
photography.
it.
Oh yeah. Hello to our younger audience.
Yeah, just
I know what that means.
Yeah.
I made those for people.
Oh
Oh,
man.
man.
That's true.
For me, when I first started taking pictures, my passion was photographing music. Like my goal was to be the person that like had the pictures that were inside of a CD for me. Like seeing a picture that was like the behind the scenes of a band, like practicing or a live show, stuff like that. That's what I was really passionate about. So I always looked there to figure out what the big people are doing. Then along came this thing called the internet, and I was able to look up more about those photographers. And so for me, finding an image that I love or finding a photographer that I'm a really big fan of, and then just researching the crap out of them. When I discovered the photographer Danny Clinch, I mean, he's done more album covers and Rolling Stones than anybody I can think of. One of my favorite photographers of all time. Going to museums, seeing a picture that you like, asking people that are photographers, who's your favorite photographer, and then just go research that person. And then you can kind of go down a rabbit hole of inspiration.
Yeah.
Well, for me, everything I do is pretty much when I travel. So travel is what inspires me. But you know, I'm a little uninspired right now because we're sort of stuck here. But actually, you know, reading books, looking at magazines, things like that. But the internet has opened up a whole world of seeing other people's ideas and their creativity. Places inspire me because, you know, I do workshops and I want to take people to these places. I see, you know, so many people post their images in Facebook and Instagram of everywhere they go. And it makes me want to go and do research on those locations and see if it's a spot that I think I would like. So I do get a lot of my inspiration just from Facebook and Instagram, not necessarily to go put my tripod right where the tripod holes were that person was, but go to a place that seems inspirational. So I do try to, I sort of, you know, follow people on those social programs and then just kind of do my own research for it. But for me, it's travel. There's not much that staying put does for me.
Where do you find those travel images? Is it more Instagram or is it more Pinterest or
Honestly,
is it travel?
I'm on Facebook. My people are on Facebook. Most people that travel with me are retired. So that's still very Facebook heavy and that's where I am. But, you know, people are posting these from all their travels and trips and I can look at something and say, I never thought about going to that part of the country. And next thing I know, I'm Googling it for 2 days. So, you know, that sort of thing inspires. And then, but you can go down so many more rabbit holes. I mean, it can just kind of lead you all over the place. So, yeah, that's for me. It's travel with the mindset of travel to get out there eventually.
Yeah, I'm gonna need someone to come up with like a virtual museum experience or something. Like if someone can design that, I would be so happy. It's like an Oculus Rift or something, and put it on my head. Dave, you're looking at me like that already exists.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so not so much to the point of the Oculus Rift, but
Well, I want that.
the Louvre, MoMA, a couple other big institutions are just like giving their entire archive to you online. So you
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
go back and look at,
That's so cool.
a Stieglitz exhibition from 1945 and see like the actual images that he curated to put on the wall.
See, that's cool. That's so cool.
You'll see the flyer, like the write up, in some cases, even recordings. I found a recording of Paul Strand and Stieglitz talking about an exhibition at MoMA, like way back in the 40s.
Okay, yeah, we're getting into like super nerd photo territory. Uh,
But yeah, I'm with
I
you. I'd love to put on like
I
a
want
headset.
the full immersive experience, man. Yeah, I want to do that. And then you have to like corral me back into the house or something. Like I want that experience.
Sarah,
'Cause
come back inside. I'm going to the Pantheon.
yeah, it's literally I don't know what it is about like being in like an exhibition space, and it doesn't have to be like a museum or something. I love the High Museum. I've had a lot of like I think the most inspirational moments that I've had at the High Museum. But any other like even smaller gallery shows, just something about being in a big space with a photograph in front of you on the wall and just being able to sit with it, that's just like that's so cool. Maybe what we have to do is if you want to do a late birthday present for me, hun, is just cut pictures out of books or print them and just tape them up around our apartment, and then I can just walk around and stare at them.
Did Sarah say something? I think she got
Oh, shut
muted.
up. But I don't know, there's just something about that. But then since I can't do that recently, those are great things where it's like, yeah, you kind of just go down the rabbit hole of MoMA's exhibition. I'm gonna have to look all that up. But there's also something random about like good YouTube videos too. I don't know. It's something like if I just find a good YouTube video of someone's photography, whether it's like the work that they've been doing or their technique, talking about it, like old artist talks that photographers have done. There's a whole bunch of them on YouTube, and just hearing them explain their work, I think has been really cool. And just being able to like now have the time to go back through and watch a lot of those, that's been kind of fun. It's been like half that and half watching Conan O'Brien play video games he knows nothing about.
Yeah, I'm the nerd. Uh, um, I, I agree. I've recently discovered. I guess it was. They might be like episodes from CBS Sunday Morning or like National Geographic, but they're all from like the 70s or 80s where they're interviewing a photographer, and it's clearly like recorded on VHS, right? And just hearing their take on photography and just hearing somebody talk about their work, say like 30 years ago, something that you don't normally see on YouTube, right? It's not somebody who's just like, please like and subscribe and follow me on Amazon and download my Facebook clicks. I'm sick of those videos.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not. I want more. No, I'm just kidding. My other question, okay, this is always a fun one. Drew and I got off into a long tangent last time we started talking about this. How do you handle your mistakes, your goofs, your mess ups? So when it all goes wrong, which inevitably does, because if there's any profession in the entire world where Murphy's Law fully applies in every extent, what can go wrong will go wrong, it's photography. Like hands down. So when it does happen, what do you do?
I guess it would be helpful for us to give an example of a time that something went wrong.
Oh yeah.
It's been so long for me. Let me think.
Oh, God,
Uh,
I know know for me, I can't count how many times I've called you in a panic to bring me something that I forgot at home.
So those are actually some of the things that first popped into my brain. Like I remember one
You
time.
remember my mistakes. Thanks.
Well,
That's great. I appreciate it.
I'm having internet problems. No, but there was one time that you didn't bring the little thing that held all your memory cards, right? Like you had CF cards, but you needed SD cards, right? I ran into a problem like that years ago, and now I keep one memory card like under all the padding in my camera bag.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Just in case I forget everything or like a corruption problem happens on my memory card. I have one that's always ready to go.
Yeah, I need to do that.
Extra tripod key is another thing that I've royally screwed up. Bringing the tripod, bringing the camera, forgetting the part that attaches the two together.
Oh, the mount piece. Yeah.
I can't tell you how many like family photo shoots I've had to do using a ladder, right? Where I'm just like laying the camera on like a little paint bucket thing because I forgot the tripod plate.
Yeah.
But your question is, how do you handle?
How do you handle it? Well, I guess you can always share like just all the goofs. But I think more importantly, people would want to know like, what was your solution? Like I can say for me, a lot of the times if I mess up, I literally like in the moment pretend like everything is totally fine.
Oh, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong whatsoever. Like, especially as a working photographer, and you're just like, oh yeah, no, it's great. Everything's fine. And then me calling you going, please get here now. I need this. Like, yeah.
I've had times where I've done portraits and like my flash battery is now dead.
Yeah.
And someone importance, like, oh, please get this shot. And you're like, okay, everything's fine. And you take a couple shots. Did you get it? Oh yeah.
Totally.
Knowing that I'm gonna have to like boost everything in Lightroom and Photoshop to make up for not having enough light.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
I guess lie.
Yeah. That's what we teach here at ASoP.
Well, I mean, like, I think it's like anything.
But yeah.
If you screw up, you don't like wave a flag and say like, "Hey, something horrible happened."
That's what I did when I first started.
Okay. No, you just
I had a flag. It's great.
You just had to roll with it, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I know for me, it's not that I don't make mistakes or anything, but it's more of something from the external happening to me. So
yes.
When I'm out on a trip or the field and, I've planned certain things, I'm supposed to be at a certain place or this or that. And then you sort of get there and the road's closed.
Oh yeah.
Or the entire area of the park's closed or this or that. Sometimes that sort of thing happens. So for me, it's what I do ahead of time is ultimate preparation. So I will actually go on a workshop a day or two early to get to a place to make sure everything's where I left it. The mountain's still there, the lake's still there. There's still a road to that mountain and lake. And then I have access to it. So there have been many times like I would go into Death Valley and they would have 3 of my shoots closed, And so I have to get there and scramble and come up with other ideas. So for me, it's like crazy preparation ahead of time and then having alternatives for when that inevitably is going to happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, just like the backup plan.
I do. I normally have a B and C and D. And I had one trip in the Tetons where a storm came in. And if you can't see the Tetons in the Tetons, there's not much of a workshop to be had. So, I got down to like plan AA, double B.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because everything kept changing so much. And I'm like, change of plans, we're going this way. So, nope, that's closed. Oh, look, a bear, so.
This leaf is
and
fascinating.
it's just like, again, it's lie and smile a lot and go, that's no big deal. I got something else we can do over here. So, it's plan ahead and hope it doesn't happen. But if it does, have alternates. That's for me.
So what did you do in that scenario where like all of a sudden you can't see the Tetons and you brought everybody like an hour up the mountain? Did you then go like, okay, so we came here to look at these rocks?
So the Tetons, basically there's like one road that goes along the Tetons and everything you shoot has a Teton behind it, right? Generally, should be. So then that day I went looking for waterfalls and cascades. And then, because I knew where a water cascadey falls was, and we played with that for a while. We went looking for moose, for pronghorn, for whatever we could find. So
Nice.
I switched it to a wildlife day, which overcast and cloudy is actually very good for wildlife. Nice even shooting. So, you know, you just suck it up and act like everything's fine. And most of the time, if people are getting shots that they like anyway and they're learning stuff, they're fine.
You can't control the weather?
I mean, I put in for a good day, but apparently that memo got lost.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens.
So yeah, 3 days in the Tetons of not being able to see the Tetons.
Jeez. Oh man.
Right. Oh,
Hey,
played with reflections. So, you know, we worked in some of the ponds with reflections, you know.
Boom. Yeah.
Got to come up.
hey, have you ever had anything with like, you know, doing post-production work and then a client says, oh, we want it to look like this. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, that's impossible based off the work I've already done, or anything like that?
Well, yeah. Well, I don't really have clients as far as work that I do for people being a workshop leader, but there was a time in my past where I had shot weddings I probably shot about 15 weddings. And my first wedding was a friend of mine in Italy. So I flew to Italy for my first wedding, and her makeup was orange. As it turned out, she had someone doing her makeup. And once we got her out in the daylight, she's my coloring, pasty white, and she had very orange makeup on.
Oh no.
I spent 3 weeks editing every one of those photos, changing the color balance on her head.
That's a nightmare.
You wouldn't know.
That's
So,
the worst.
I learned really well how to do selections and color balancing in Photoshop.
Man.
And then I also have had a lot of people say, you know, I want to do this and that. And I'm like, you know, some people want to look the ways they don't look in photos. And that's hard because it's like, you know, I mean, I can do it, but it's not going to look right.
Right.
You know, I'm like, well, how you say that? You can't. So yeah, no, there are times that I have had people have expectations that couldn't be met. And then there's that time that I tried to make her expectations of what actually had already happened be the same as what actually, you know, happened. So
Well, fun.
that was a
Yeah.
fun first wedding that I got to do all of that post editing on.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And Jay, you do almost like probably the most retouching that like Photoshop awesomeness out of the majority of us at the schools. Like, have you ever run into anything like that where it's just like, this is not going to happen, or the software's just not cooperating?
So typically, anything creatively that I try to do, if I'm doing it with someone for the first time, it's actually the second time I've done it. I usually put my camera on a tripod and actually shoot myself, just
Oh,
so I
good call.
know what, for instance, do I need to be a certain distance away from something so I can make a proper mask or something like that? Or if I'm gonna light it, is it gonna look weird? Like if you're making someone look like they're doing like the Thanos snap from Avengers and they're turning into dust. Certain lighting
Dave is going to immediately request that you do that with his picture.
so certain of course I guess my fail safe is I do it to myself first so I know on the day, but I have had friends and people reach out and ask me to do things. They're like, hey, can you add a light behind someone?
Yes.
If you do add a light to someone, there is a way to do it, but if you imagine a light directly behind you, you're silhouetted, so you can't necessarily like light every single thing correctly in a scene like that. So there are things where people just like, they want you to basically just make a CG object in that sense.
Right. Can you change the light in this picture?
Yeah. So
No, the sun was over there.
so yeah, there are certain things. Obviously, if you shoot directly into the sun, the person's going to be completely silhouetted. So there's like almost no information you can bring back, obviously, but people just don't know sometimes. But
Yeah.
but yeah, post-production. And then for film as well, I guess it's the same ordeal. People are like, hey, can we get a shot of this instead? Like when two people are talking. So I've kind of taken that in consideration for photos. Is I make sure I get every kind of frame on every person per, I guess, scenario, if you will. So if I'm doing headshots, I do like a half shot, close up, and then an extreme close up. So it's just the face, just so I have the options on the back end. But
Yeah, I think that's really important to hear when talking about Photoshop is
Yeah.
like giving it a test run before you actually go out and shoot. Because, I've done similar stuff in the past, and it's always the thing that you didn't think about when you get all your files together and you're like, oh man, why did I shoot it that way? Like, I could have done this better. So I think what you're talking about, doing it first before you get out there in the field, that's super helpful.
yeah, I mean, you can even just go like on Google and search for a photo of someone too, if you don't want to necessarily do it, just so you know what you can do in Photoshop.
Right.
Because then if you know that you don't really have the skill set to do so, then you won't spend the time with someone and waste that time on your shoot. So you don't necessarily have to shoot yourself to do that. You can just pull any image and mess around with it. But I've also found that if you do anything in Photoshop that's very heavy, shooting it on a solid background is the easiest way to start.
Oh,
And then move into going outside and doing stuff like that. Because if you're outside, the background changes and then you have to recreate that whole background digitally and not.
So I have a rule about whenever I'm doing compositing, I avoid trees as much as possible, right? Because I hate them.
Yep.
Are you kind of in the same boat?
Yeah, trees, anything that's I guess I would consider as like a mesh. So anything that's somewhat opaque, but you can still see, and if it moves, anything like that, I try to stay away with it. Anything that's solid, anything that has horizontal and vertical lines that are consistent, that's easy to clone and do that kind of stuff. That's what I typically try to go for. Or if you can't find any of that stuff, I shoot everything at a 1.2 to a 1.8. If I have something that's very distracting, like a tree in the background, that way it's just like a giant, like bokeh ball of
Yeah.
tree.
Yeah.
So it's a little easier. But yeah, I mean, there's just certain ways you can try to go around stuff. If in 360 degrees you're seeing a forest, like there's certain ways you can go about doing it. It's just about a matter of, can you pull that out of your back pocket at that time? So
Yeah, I think like a day 2 of my Photoshop class, I just give them, there's a picture and it's just like tall grass weeds. And I was like, try and select it. Go for it. See what happens. And you can't do it. So it's like knowing that before you take a picture to say, oh, I'm just going to like throw some stuff in behind the grass. And it's like, no, you're not. It's not. If you want to do like 10 hours of Photoshopping, go right ahead, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. So knowing that, but it's like, I only do that because I goofed up thinking that. Like back in college, I was like, oh yeah, I can just like put some stuff in there behind this super textured multicolor thing. And it's like, no, you couldn't. And I'd start everything all over again. It was a nightmare. Last question, because I got just like a few more minutes with you guys, but we can hang out forever. How long? If you guys
I'm
just
still
want to
thinking
like,
about bokeh balls.
I know.
My new favorite phrase.
Can we market that? How do we monetize bokeh balls?
well, you gotta think about it. If you take a picture of a sparkler that's out of focus, what does it look like?
This needs to be an email, guys. We're giving
Sorry.
this free.
We're literally giving away our Shark Tank idea to everyone on the internet. God. Last question. What do you wish someone had told you when you first started taking pictures? I'm hitting y'all with the deep questions.
Lighting. I think I took so many pictures when I first got started, and I was trying to like put the faces in the middle or pay attention to my corners, but I was neglecting lighting. I was just like, oh, it's noon. Let's go out and do a photo shoot. Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is paying attention when to take pictures based off of light.
Yeah, that's huge.
I would say don't buy the 50 millimeter or 1.2 lens off the start, and then always shoot in 1.2. Start with the 54 to 5.6 and make sure that you have your I guess with the 400 to 5.6, you always have a sharp image if your camera's doing everything right. But 1.2 to 1.8 is very tricky you're talking about your eyelashes at that small.
Still, yeah.
But looking at go ahead.
Okay. I would say, being in the outdoor landscape world, don't buy the cheap tripod. Don't buy a Walmart tripod. And then don't buy another one that's just $50 better. And then another one that's just $50 better. And then another one that's just $100 better. Don't start with the cheapest gear. You don't have to go to the highest end, but don't start with crap.
Yeah. Things that like you looking at it know are going to fall apart.
I evolved over 6 different, tripods in 10 years. And then, that would have been good. I could have saved some money there.
Yeah. And then it's like you end up spending more money replacing the things that you were buying instead of just getting the good thing. Yeah.
Buy nice or buy twice. It was more like buy nice or buy 5 times.
Mm-hmm. So. Oh yeah, for sure. I've learned that the hard way on many, many, many occasions.
I was fortunate to have a boss that told me, buy the expensive tripod and it will last you forever. Mm-hmm. I spent $200 back when I was, like 22 years old, and that was a huge amount of money. And I still have that tripod. Like I even have the barcode with the price on it, so I know exactly how much it cost back then. And that was, 2002, and the thing still rocks.
See, I use the same setup now. I've got an $800, $400 head, $400 legs, but I've been using it for 8 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would hurt someone to keep it. I mean, I would fight for it because it's my favorite. Yeah. And they don't make these tripod legs anymore. So I would fight someone.
That's always the worst. It's like you have your favorite piece of equipment, and if it breaks, then you're like, nope, it's just continued. Can't even get to it anymore. Not at all. I realized my answer for the question was actually like, stop trying to please every single person with your pictures when you create them. I think that like every one of us goes through a phase where you're getting feedback. Like mine was for me in college, of course, because we're like constantly getting feedback from professors and students and everything. And I got so bogged down into trying to fit my photography into like the parameters that they wanted it to be, rather than just creating the work that originally got people interested. So it kind of, you veer off the path a little bit. And I feel like now, especially with social media, things have become a little bit more like kind of, it's easier to end up in that headspace and in that mindset where you're just like, oh, people liked this one more. And rather than saying, well, you know what, maybe it just happened to be on Facebook at the right time, or maybe that's an easy image to see on a tiny screen, or maybe, I don't know, someone really likes my dog or something. I don't know. I really like my dog. And
following, so.
Yes, Bailey. And he like, so it's things like that where I wish that I had sort of stepped back and not to take the criticism, but not take it as seriously. So not to say change up everything, but maybe take hints to improve what you're already doing. So don't do a complete like 90-degree shift on it. Take what you've got and build on top of it, but also potentially like pay attention to the people who you find like maybe most important that are giving you feedback on your work. Filter
the feedback.
Yes, absolutely. I wish I'd done that for sure.
Right. You got to remember, you're the photographer. You're the person who's got the vision, who's building the composition. Your own style has to come through. If you're just doing what my mom thinks is a good picture, right? I'm just going to get like the most vanilla, like sorority pose pictures every single time.
She would. She'd love it.
Oh, I hear it all the time. David, why can't you just take a normal picture?
It's gotta be so weird, David.
Yeah. Like there was one of you and I on top of like a hill in France, and my mom's like, "It's such a lovely picture, but Sarah's hair's blowing." It's like,
oh yeah,
like,
sorry.
Yeah, whatever.
My mother used to dig my rejects out of the trash.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, she'd dig them out and like put them in a book or show them to people. Like, Mom, there's a grape in there in the trash.
All right. So,
Before I discarded them, I would have to rip them up.
Oh my
Like
God.
the ones
So-
that I didn't, because like mine were, they were too creative. She wanted the other ones, and so those were the ones I threw away, and she wanted them. So I had to start ripping my discards out.
that's so funny you say that, because my mom did the same thing. Like all my shots that didn't come out, like in the dark room, I'm printing and it's like too dark or too contrasty. It just wasn't a good print, or I didn't fix it long enough. These were all just like in a box stacked. I came home one year and my mom had framed all of them.
Oh no!
Like they're on the wall, and you know,
Like a horror show when you walk in.
yeah,
Oh
these are
no.
darkroom prints. And so I did not-
Forcing you to face your own mistakes.
right.
That's
So
just-
they weren't even fixed. So they're on the wall. And like every time I go home, they're more purple,
Oh.
right?
photographer's own personal hell.
Yeah, I think I need a therapist to explain why my mom framed my failures.
Ooh,
That's amazing.
that could get deep.
Oh man, that's fantastic.
Here's
Well-
all the chicken you burnt. Now it's on the wall.
Yeah, basically. Oh, in documentational form exhibited in your own home. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, I can't wait to talk to her about that.
Oh, you
Uh,
can see them. They're in the kitchen.
They are. Oh man. Well, on that extremely entertaining note, that's all I have for you guys today. I think we figured it out. I think we came to every possible conclusion, and I think we finally solved it. So we're submitting this live stream to the Library of Congress. And if anyone needs reference on how to become a good photographer, they just have to watch the last hour of us talking.
Yes.
And we think Drew's okay. We're not certain.
Yeah, we'll check on Drew. He may have seen another plane or something. I don't know what happened there, but I'm sure it's fine. It's true. All right, guys, thanks for joining. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's
And
blast.
yes, and thanks everyone out there for watching. Come hang out with us. We are online, and I think we have a workshop virtually like every day for the next rest of the month at least. We've got some classes that are starting up next week. We've got composition with Allison on Wednesday afternoons. We've got photo two with Julie. I'm going to be doing a video editing class. We've got classes coming up in June as well. Fingers crossed that we're back in the classroom, but we don't know anymore. Yay. We'll keep you posted. We'll keep you posted. But until then, we have a ridiculous amount of stuff up on our website under our workshops. I'll put a link in the description to join us there and come hang out. Cool. Thanks, guys. Have an awesome night.
All right. Good
All
night.
right.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Live long.